In this tutorial, we are going to add our Hamburger navigation menu. And this is probably the most complex set of coding that we will do for our website. So we'll take it slow and get through all the little pieces that this little tiny but powerful navigation menu can do. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to actually go ahead and put in parts of this navigation menu a little bit at a time. I'm going to toggle over to our style sheet first, and we need to start building out some of the styles for this, and I'm going to switch back and forth to kind of show you how this works as we go along. So again, I want to add a section for our navigation styling, so I'm going to grab our previous section of the header styles, that commented out section. In fact, what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab both of these right here, because you'll see that I'll have a pretty similar setup for every single one of our sections that I do. We'll have a mobile and a desktop version. So I'm going to hit Command-C or Control-C. And then at the end of our last section of that last curly brace underneath here, where we did our header desktop version, I'm going to hit the Enter return key a couple times, so I have some white space there. And then I'm going to hit Control-V or Command-V. And then I'm going to change that from header styles, just delete out the header part, and type in primary nav bar styles. Okay? And then at the end of where it says mobile, I'm going to hit the Enter return key, and then I'm going to start styling the primary nav wrap that we entered in at the very beginning of our header tutorial. So this, I'm going to type in period, and then primary nav wrap already pops in there because I've put that into our HTML code. So I'm just going to hit the Enter return key on that class, and then open up a curly brace. And here we're going to tell it where it's going to be. So this one, like with the logo, where we put the logo, remember we put the logo in the grid column 1. We are going to put the nav button in grid column number 12. And here's where I'm actually going to say call 12. So remember up here where we set up our header to have grid template columns, repeat 12, column 1 fraction. So this is where we get to call this up, right? So I'm naming this directly call 12. So that's saying that you're going into that column number 12. Okay? That's the name of each one of those columns. And then make sure you put in a semicolon there at the end. And this is going in the same row as our logo. So we want to make sure that we type in grid row. And this is just going to be row 1. And then we want to give this a little bit of padding so that way it doesn't slam itself right up to the edge of our design. So padding, and then we're just going to target, padding right. And it's going to be 10 pixels. That's it. Okay? So that's just going to set up our structure of our where our Hamburger menu is going to go. Now I'm going to toggle back over to our HTML source code. I'm going to place my cursor in between where we have div class, primary nav wrap. Okay? Now we're going to start building out some of the portions of our label. So I want to toggle back over real quick and show you in our example of what this is. So this is our basically our hamburger menu. Okay, and when you uncheck and unclick and all that kind of stuff, it's gonna disappear. So the way we're going to achieve this is by using, this is our preview page here. The way we're going to achieve this is by using the checkbox functions of a form. And this is already built into HTML5, and it'll allow us to style these. So we're going to end up using labels and checkboxes that are built into forms. So I'm going to what I'm going to try to do is to show you how this works as we build it out. So I'm going to place my cursor there into div class there, and I'm not going to style things right away, but what I want to show you is how this is going to look. So left caret, and we're going to put in input, and we're going to put in type, and this is going to be a checkbox, and then we're going to put in a /. Okay, so I'm just gonna I just want to preview this so that way you can see what this ends up looking like as we build it out. So there we go. There's a little checkbox right there. Okay, so I'm going to toggle back over, and the next thing we need to do is we need to create a label for that checkbox. So I'm going to hit the enter return key, left caret, and there's some things we need to add to this later on, but we'll build those out in just a minute. Label, and this is, we're going to I'm just going to go ahead and put in a right caret here for now, and we're going to put in, believe it or not, this hamburger menu is actually a character that we can input. So rather than make an image for it, we can just make this a character, and we can actually change the size and shape of that using font size for that character. So it's pretty convenient to do it that way. So to make sure that we do this right, we have to type in the ampersand and the pound symbol followed by that. So ampersand, pound symbol. So this is the decimal value of this hamburger menu, and it is number 79776 semicolon. There are other examples of this out there. I think there are different styles of hamburger menus, but this is the one that I fell onto. So I'm going to go ahead and save this, and then pop back over to our window here and show you, so you can kind of see it up in there. It's black, and it's right next to our checkbox symbol right over there. Okay, and then next I need to hit the enter return key, and then from there we have our label, and then we need to enter in another label, which is what will allow us to set our label to off. And we're just going to go ahead and put this in here for now, and it's going to end up being empty for now. We will add an ID, or we will add an for and an off here later on in just a minute. Okay, so the next thing I want to do is come over into our style sheet and add some styling to our on and off and our labels. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do, right after our primary nav wrap, I'm going to hit the enter return key, and I'm going to type in .primary nav wrap again, and I'm going to type in label, so I'm targeting the label that we just created, right? And then open up a curly brace, not the quotation marks, curly brace. And what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to give this a font size. I'm going to increase the font size of that hamburger menu, of that hamburger symbol that we use. And I'm going to use 2.5 rem. Okay, so rem is a value based on our original font size that we created up here in the body. And so we're going to continue to use rems throughout. So we're not going to use pixel values very often. Rem will multiply our font size by the calculation of this value right here. So that's pretty handy when we are creating websites for different screen sizes. Okay, so I'm going to hit the enter return key, and we need to create a class that sets up our menu on, menu off. So I'm going to type in menu, period, menu on. Okay, and then open up a curly brace, and we want to say we're going to float this to the right, and we're going to say it's going to position itself right 0, meaning right on the y-axis 0. And then color, we're going to change the color of our navigation of our hamburger menu to white so we can see it really nice against that dark gray of a background that we've created. And then we need to set our z index for this. Remember, we talked about our z index in our header up above, and we set that z index of our header to 1,000. This hamburger menu needs to be a higher value than 1,000 because it's going above our header. It needs to stack on top of that. So instead of 1,000, we're going to make it 2,000. Okay. And the next thing we want to do, so I'm going to go ahead and save this real quick, and then come over to our source code and save that. And then I'm going to pop over to our design here. And so what you're going to see here is you're going to see, right now you can still check this box and all that because I haven't really done anything else to that. But then our menu, our little hamburger menu did get a little bit bigger. So I'm going to tab over to here. And what we need to do is add where we have our labels here. Okay, we need to set these to menu on. So this label right here is going to get a class of menu on. Okay. Okay. So let's go ahead and check that out. So now it's white and it's floating over to the right. So it's pushing that over there. Okay. Okay, so then next, come back to our style sheet. And below menu on, we're going to set, create another class. And this one's going to be called menu off. And we're going to hit open up a curly brace here. And here we're going to give it some styling here so that when it goes off, it disappears for us. Okay. So we're going to say menu off position is fixed. The top is 0. The right is 0. Bottom is 0. And left is 0. Okay. And then beneath that, we're going to say background. And here we're going to give this a background color of RGBA. And what this is going to do is when this gets displayed, when this gets pushed out, it's going to have a kind of a transparent effect. So bear with me just for a second. So this is going to be 0, 0, 0. And there should be 3 zeros there, and then another comma, and then 0.40. So that's going to be really transparent. It's going to be about 40% transparent. Okay. And then colon, semicolon at the end there. And then we need to set this as a Z index as something that goes below the menu on option. So the menu on option is a Z index of 2000. This one needs to be set as Z index as 1000. Okay. And then when it's off, display is none. Okay. So this class is going to get applied to the label underneath the menu on option. So that one is going to be class menu off. Okay. So then I'm going to tab or come back over to our style sheet. And the next thing that we need to do, I'm going to come down here and we need to add our toggle menus, and so that when they click, they go on, off, and make sure that functions correctly. Okay. So after the class of menu off, hit the enter return key, and we're going to type in a pound symbol for the ID. It's for an ID, so we're making this an ID. So we're going to call this toggle dash menu, and then open up a curly brace, and this one is going to say display none. Okay. And then we need to add this toggle menu to we'll need to add this to one of our inputs over here. So hang on just a second. Save this, and this ID is going to get applied to all of our inputs and labels here. So place your cursor right after input, right, and before type and class and all that. So you see my cursor there. So input, and we're going to type in ID, and this is going to be toggle dash menu. And then where we have label, okay, hit the space bar and type in 4. And this is also going to be toggle dash menu. Okay. And then where it says label, place your cursor after that, and then same thing for toggle dash menu. Okay, so I'm going to pause right there for just a second and save and show you what I've got. So I've got input ID equals toggle menu, and the type is a checkbox. Label for toggle menu, class menu on, and that's where our hamburger menu label goes. Then the second one after, or the third one after that, is label for toggle menu, and this will be our menu off. So let's go ahead and see what this looks like. It may not look like much right now, but because we still need to add quite a bit more stuff here. So I'm going to toggle over. So there's our checkbox is gone. Okay, and right now it doesn't do anything. Okay, we can't see much, but our checkbox is gone. Its display is gone. There's our little menu there. So far we're okay. We're where we need to be. So we're going to toggle back over. Okay, and before I go any further, I want to start building out the navigation list for our nav. Okay, so I want to make sure that I have this all in the right spot. We have our div class primary nav right there. I want to place my cursor at the end of that last closing label and hit the enter return key 2 times. I actually want to create a little bit of space here to show that what we have going on here are basically 2 different things. Okay, now we're going to add our navigation links, and we're going to do this by adding what's called a nav tag. Just like the header tag, HTML5 has a nav tag, so we're going to type in a left caret, type in nav space class, and we haven't named this yet, but we're going to call this primary dash nav. We're going to create that class here in just a minute, and hit the caret there, right caret, and then hit the enter return key. So you should see nav class, primary nav, and then closing nav. Okay. Then from here we need to build out our links for all 5 of our pages, and we're just going to simply enter our A tag. We don't need to nest these tags into anything else. So we're going to type in our left caret, and then we're going to type in left caret A href. And we don't have these pages built yet, so what we're going to do is we're just going to simply put in, well, we could do this for our index page. So let's go ahead and do that. Hit the enter return key, and then link your index page. But we haven't created those yet for our other pages, so we'll have to use pound symbols as placeholders for the rest. So hit the right key, the right arrow key there, and then we'll type in home in between the closing A tag and the opening A tag. And then hit the enter return key again, and then we're going to build out the rest of our nav links for the rest of our pages. So I'm going to type in ahref and hit the enter return key. I'm going to type in a pound symbol for a placeholder, and then place my cursor after that quotation mark, and then hit the right caret. And then here we're going to type in resume. If you want to save yourself some time, you could just copy and paste this line and then just replace each one of these names in there, but I'm not going to do that, so I'm going to hit the enter return key. I'm going to do this the long way just so we can kind of show it, and then and then caret education plan, and there we go. Type in ahref and then pound symbol, and then right caret, and then this one's going to be internship experience, and then enter return, and then ahref, pound symbol, and showcase, the last one. Okay, so that'll build out our nav system. I'm going to go ahead and save this, and what you're going to see in our design is you're actually going to see those kind of come out here. So we need to get those somehow. What we need to do is we need to get those navs to pop out like this, to pop out like that, and create that link, and then be able to click on and off. Okay, so this is what we kind of did part of this when we hit that menu off option. That's that little overlay right there, and so if we click on that, that's what makes it disappear. So that's what that little menu off label did for us just a minute ago when we coded that in. We couldn't see that when we were building this out. So I'm going to tab over to Dreamweaver again and get into our style sheet, and here's where we're going to start styling out how our menu is going to look. Type in a pound symbol and type in toggle menu again, so that ID, okay? And then we're going to add what's called a pseudo class by typing in a colon and select and type in checked. So when basically when our menu gets checked, okay, it's going to activate something else. Okay, so what we're saying is when you check this menu, and right now you can't see that checkbox because we set the display to none, right? So, but it's being replaced by our label that we've created over there. So that's how that's going to work. So toggle menu checked, and what we need to do is type in this fancy little equate to symbol. So if you don't know where that's at, the key left of the number 1 key on your keyboard, there's this little, equivalent symbol over there. So you need to hit the shift key in order to activate that that key. So again, spacebar, shift, equivalent, and that's that key right next to the number 1 key. Okay, and what we're doing is we're activating the nav, that tag nav. So we're saying activate the nav tag class primary nav. See how that? So that's the nav primary nav. So if you look at our structure over here, I'm gonna go ahead and hit save. Toggle over here. So this is our nav class primary nav. That's what we're activating, right? Okay. So come back over here and then open up a curly brace at the end. So our style sheet doesn't give us a red angry, you did something wrong. And then what we're gonna say is we want you to display this as a block element. Okay, block level element. Okay. Then next, hit the enter return key at the end of that curly brace, and I'm going to go ahead and save so my little red angry thing disappears there. So same thing, we need to type in a pound symbol, toggle menu, okay, and then colon, same thing, checked, just like that. But this time we are activating with the equivalent sign, okay? So same process as we did there before, but this time we're activating the menu off class, okay? And you're going to hit a curly brace, and we're going to say, when you activate this, display this as a block level element. Okay? Okay, so that should take care of that part for now. And I don't know if this will actually show us anything over here. Probably not. Yep, there we go. So see how we get that overlay. When we click on the hamburger menu, we get that overlay of the color. So that shows that something is activated, and when we click off of it, it'll disappear. Okay? But what we need is we need to get our nav links into that area so that they display. So we're going to come back over here, and I'm going to add this above. So I want to move, I'm going to add this little bit of styling beneath the menu off attributes, or the menu off class. So I have my cursor right after that curly brace somewhere around line 107 on mine, and I'm going to hit the enter return key so I have some space in between there. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to style the nav tag and that class primary nav. So nav class primary nav, and it's already in my code hint because I've been using it, and then open up a curly brace. So here we're going to tell this to be position fixed, and we're giving it the position that we want to fix it at, which means that we're going to tell it we want it to be fixed at the top at 0 and the right at 0. So that's where it's going to display it kind of left to right in that way. And we want the width of this to display at 100%. So whatever window that it falls within, it's going to cover that whole entire screen at 100%. And then I'm going to set my background to basically the same color that I've used for my header. And that's a pound symbol number 333. If you want to change this color, this is the place to do this. Okay? And then next, when this gets activated and when this shows up, we want to set this Z index to 3000. So that's going to go over the top of anything that we have, when it shows up. Okay. Now we're also going to say, in terms of when we set the display, we're going to set it to display none. And this is because we don't want this to show up when it's not activated. We only want to show up when it is activated. So that's why we put in the display none right there. Okay, and then hit the enter return key after that. And then next we need to style the navigation links themselves. So here we're going to type in nav again, dot primary nav, and this time we need to add the A tag for the links in that nav, and hit the space bar and then open up a curly brace. We need to set those displays to set the display to a block level element. And so here's where you're going to get to play with some of the styling part of the navigation itself. Some of these things you might want to keep, like the padding. I'm going to set the padding value to 10 pixels all the way around that A level element so that it has some spacing around it. I'm going to set the font size also to 1.2 rem. You can certainly play with that font size if you'd like. I'm going to set my color to white, and in fact I can just type in white if I'd want to instead of the hexadecimal value of FFF. You can change that color if you'd like to as well. I also set a font weight to mine to be 500, which is kind of right in the middle. And then I also wanted to add some letter spacing for some readability. So type in letter spacing there, and really this can be pretty small. If you want to do a pixel value, it might be like 1 pixel. I did it as a rem. So if you go 0.10 rem, or actually I'm going to do this as an M, so that way whatever, it'll base off this pixel value based off of the 1.2 rem above there. So this M inherits its font size from the parent element. The rem inherits its font size from basically from the root element, which is why it stands for rem. The root element in this case is our body. Okay, so just remember that. So I'm setting that to 0.10 m, so it'll inherit that from the parent element. And we need to set our text decoration to, text decoration to none, so we don't have an underline link, because that's by default, that's the way HTML displays links. And then hit the enter return. I want to set my text alignment to center, so that displays in the center when that pops up. And then last but not least, I'm going to set a border on the bottom so that each one of these gets separated when you see it. So I'm going to do a 1 pixel inset, and I've selected a color of EF, EF, EF. And you can choose whatever color you'd like for that to display at. Okay? And then before the next last thing that we need to do to this piece is when we hover over these links in, when we use our mouse. And in this case, I know we're doing it under mobile. So if we're doing it under mobile, you won't see this hover property because you're using your finger to touch something. So you don't really have a hover property in a mobile version. You won't see this hover property in a mobile version, but we can still put it in this underneath this section, and it'll work just fine for our desktop or laptop versions. So I'm going to hit the enter return key after that closing curly brace, and we're going to type in nav.primary nav again, but this time we're going to hit the space bar. We're going to type in that A element again. So whenever we're hovering over our A element, so we type in our colon, that's our pseudo class hover, and then we're going to open up a curly brace. And for me, I picked so we set a background color here, and I picked a white color, and I used the RGBA version of this so that I could reduce its transparency like we did up here in the menu off option. So open up a curly brace, and white is 255, 255, 255. And then to set the opacity on that, we put in another fourth value there. So it's 0 point, and I'm doing something very light, 10% opacity. And then at the end of that, put in a curly brace. And I believe that should take care of our navigation menu entirely. So let's go ahead and test it out. So go ahead and save that. Come over to our source code there, make sure I got everything there. And then tab over to our design. and then click on the menu, and boom, it works. And then so when you have that hover property, that's that 10% overlay that we did of that hover property. And when we off click it, it goes away. When we click it, it's there. Boom. Pretty cool, right? Did I spell showcase wrong? Look at this. Let me see. Click on my thing. There it is. I spelled showcase with 2 E's. Better go back and fix that. Otherwise, I'll give myself a 1. Fix that. There we go. Okay, go ahead and hit save. And that'll do it for our navigation menu. In our next tutorial, I believe, we will be working on looking at our footer. So that should round out the kind of the basic setup for our page without going into our content yet. But from there we can create all of our pages and link our navigation menu, and then we can start building out the content of all of our pages.